It's a bright sunny day in Colorado. Johnny is standing at the top of the Woods ski run in Vail, Colorado. Johnny is a man in his 70s with a gray beard and long gray hair worn in a ponytail. He looks younger than his years. Johnny surveys the landscape and smiles. He says to himself, "I'm the luckiest man on the face of the earth." He starts to ski the run. The top of the run has medium-sized moguls, and Johnny traverses them very carefully. He skis halfway down the run, then pauses on the side of the run to catch his breath. Johnny again surveys the landscape and smiles. He continues to ski on the part of the ski run that is steeper and has been groomed. Johnny skis at a faster pace, making nicely carved turns. He lets out a few loud whoops. A woman in a red ski outfit hears Johnny's yells and smiles. Johnny skis to the bottom and gets on the chairlift. The woman in the red ski outfit ends up sitting next to Johnny on the chairlift. They ride for a while and Johnny turns to the lady. "Beautiful day, ma'am," said Johnny, smiling. "Yes, it certainly is. You look pretty good out there," said the woman. "Well, not too bad for an old guy," said Johnny with a big grin. "You aren't that old," said the woman. "Well, I'm sure I'm old enough to be your daddy," said Johnny. "Come on now, you're not that old," said the woman, shaking her head. "I'm in my 70s, ma'am," said Johnny. "Well, I guess you are old enough to be my dad." "Well, you sure don't look it," said the woman. "Well, it's sort of like a car that still runs and looks okay but has lots of miles on it," said Johnny with a grin. They converse along the way and finally approach the top of the run. They get set to disembark the chairlift. Johnny turns to the lady. "Nice talking to you, ma'am. You have a great day," said Johnny. "You too, sir," said the lady, smiling. They both get off the chairlift and ski in different directions. Johnny again takes in the view and says to himself, "Sir, I hate that name." He remembers telling a friend how you can tell when a person is getting old. They always call you sir, they open doors for you, and you always check your shirt to make sure there's no food on it before you go out. The following April, Johnny is sitting in Tommy's family room with 3 friends from his high school days. The 4 men have been like brothers and close friends for over 55 years. They call themselves the 4 original neat guys. They all tried to comb their hair like Tony Curtis, and they had a saying that went like this: "May we never part nor part our hair." All 3 men are in their 70s. Tommy is tall, lean, and well-dressed with blonde hair. Davy is tall and muscular with curly blonde hair. Andy is of medium height, trim, and with a few flecks of gray in his blonde hair. Andy is visiting from Arizona. All 4 men are drinking a beer. They are deciding on a restaurant to spend the evening at. "Well, here's to the 4 original neat guys," said Davy, as he held up his beer in a toast. "Still crazy after all these years," said Andy, smiling. All 4 men hold their beers up in a toast and then take a swig of beer. "Hey, Johnny, how was Vail?" said Tommy. "Oh, it was awesome. I had great weather and lots of snow. Made it back in one piece. By the way, how did your new hip treat you in Florida? Did you get any golf in?" said Johnny. "Oh, the hip is good as long as I keep exercising and moving around. I did manage to get a few birdies in Naples, and I shot a few rounds in the mid-80s. Truth be told, I sure as heck wouldn't want to go through another operation like that one again. The recovery time was not fun," said Tommy. "Yeah, I would not like to go through another shoulder operation either. That wasn't fun. But I could still bench press over 160 pounds, said Davy, shaking his head. 2 knee replacements were enough for me, but walking 4 miles a day and swimming has me back to normal, said Andy. 4 miles a day. Andy, you are one tough son of a gun, said Tommy as he raised his beer. That's for sure. Who else do we know made a college varsity football team as a 170-pound freshman guard, said Davy as he raised his beer to Andy. Johnny raised his beer again and said, I'll drink to that. You know, I've got you guys all beat when it comes to operations. The rotator cuff operation from that motorcycle accident, and then my prostate operation. Now they tell me I'm going to need a new hip. You know, it's really funny. Here we are talking about our operations. 50 years ago it was women and cars. Mostly cars, said Johnny, grinning. You got that right, said Davy. Actually, we are all very lucky to be here after all these years. Better yet, how many guys in their 70s can still do what we do? You know, it just dawned on me. We're all playing a game of life in the fourth quarter, said Johnny in a serious tone. That's for darn sure. Maybe we're in overtime, said Andy with a frown. Golly, I sure hope not, said Davy as he took a big swig of beer. The next morning, Johnny and his wife Rosa are sitting in their kitchen drinking coffee. Rosa is an attractive woman in her late 60s. She has dark brown hair and looks 10 years younger. Johnny would always kid Rosa about dyeing her hair and jokingly suggest that she go gray. Rosa would always ignore the suggestion. She would tell Johnny he looks like an old hippie and he should go cut his hair. How are the boys doing? You came home rather early last night. I hope you didn't drink too much, said Rosa. Nah, I behaved myself. 2 beers at Tommy's and a glass of Cabernet with my meal. The boys are all doing well. Andy's swimming and walking every day. Tommy's golf game is good. Davy still lifts weights and looks great. We just can't party like we used to, said Johnny, emptying his coffee cup. Well, thank goodness for that, said Rosa as she poured Johnny another cup of coffee. Johnny gets a serious look on his face. I made a comment last night at Tommy's that really put the hook in me. I thought about it while driving home. I just couldn't get to sleep last night, said Johnny. You were awfully restless last night. What was it that kept you awake, said Rosa. I made the comment last night that we are all playing the game of life in the fourth quarter. You know, we're all in our 70s, said Johnny. Well, I guess you could say that, but why would that bother you, said Rosa. I got to thinking, what happens when that whistle blows, said Johnny. Sometimes you really scare me. By the way, I saw Sonny's wife at the beauty parlor yesterday. She told me that she and Sonny might be moving to Florida permanently. They are looking for a condo around the area where our son Jamie lives. Did you know that, said Rosa? Yep, said Johnny. Rosa frowns. Well, why didn't you tell me? You blab about every other thing that Sonny does, especially when he gets a new Harley or another gun. I don't want to get into another discussion with you about moving to Florida, said Johnny. Rosa shakes her finger at Johnny and says, now hold on a minute. I'm getting sick of these nasty Wisconsin winters. Also, we'd be close to Jamie, and I love Florida seashores, said Rosa. Johnny smiled and said, first of all, there are no ski areas in Florida. Secondly, it's dangerous to ride a motorcycle in Florida. And thirdly, it's hot and humid. There are also snakes and bugs in Florida. I hate snakes. Plus, we live on a lake right now, so what's the big deal about the seashore? Do you remember when I worked for that Connecticut company and you went with me to Miami for those board meetings? It was 95 degrees at night. Yeah, I've heard this all before. I bet if it were Vail or Aspen, you'd move there in an instant, said Rosa, shaking her head. I sure would if I were a multimillionaire. Let's table this discussion for now. How about if we go out to eat tonight? I could go for a big steak. Arguing with you always makes me hungry, said Johnny with a big grin. Well, finally something we can agree on, said Rosa. Rosa left the kitchen. Johnny picked up his cell phone and placed a call. Hello, Steve. This is Johnny. Yeah, how's the world treating you? That's great. Do you remember when we talked a while back about Christianity? Well, something's come up that's really been bothering me. I'd like to talk to you about it. I wonder if we could get together sometime to chat a bit. It would be at your convenience. Yes, next Thursday at your place would be great. Thanks, Steve. See you then, said Johnny. Rosa comes back into the kitchen. What was that all about, said Rosa. Johnny takes a sip of coffee. Oh, that remark I made about whistleblowing in the fourth quarter is really bugging me. Steve's really up on that kind of stuff. I just want to talk to him, said Johnny. Rosa smiles. You sure let little things bother you, said Rosa. This may not be a little thing, said Johnny. Johnny is sitting in Steve's living room. Steve is a handsome man in his late 60s. What's been bothering you, Johnny? Said Steve, smiling. Johnny sighs. The other night I went out with 3 of my close friends. We've been like brothers since we were kids. All of us are in our 70s, said Johnny. Well, I'll be 70 next year, said Steve, grinning. I made the comment that we are all playing a game of life in the fourth quarter, said Johnny. Steve puts a hand on his chin and says, well, that's true. Johnny starts to talk in a quiet and serious tone. One of my friends made a comment that we could all be playing a game of life in overtime also, said Johnny. Well, that's also true, said Steve. Well, on the way home, I started wondering what really happens when the whistle blows and the game ends, said Johnny. Well, why does that bother you, said Steve. Steve, do you remember our conversation a few months ago when you said if we don't believe in Jesus Christ, that he is the Son of God, when we die, we will burn in hell for all eternity? I believe in God and a hereafter, but I do have my doubts about Jesus being the Son of God, said Johnny. Steve nods his head. I can see where that would bother a person, said Steve. Steve, I believe in a supreme being, a God. If this short life we live on earth is all that there ever is, then why not do everything in one's power to extract the maximum amount of pleasure, wealth, and power during our time here on earth, no matter how much it hurts other human beings? If there is no hereafter and no God to be accountable to, why be concerned about how we live our lives? Why do we have a conscience and feel guilty when we do something wrong? I don't believe that a piece of slime crawled out of the sea and evolved into a human being with conscience and intelligence. I reasoned this myself a few years ago. I just can't believe that a person like Hitler can do all that evil and not have to answer for it. What a hopeless existence if it all ends in an instant and there is nothing to look forward to. Sometimes I have doubts about God and the hereafter. I'm easily able to dispel these doubts, but the doubts about Jesus being the Son of God are not easy to dispel. Does any of my reasoning make any sense to you, said Johnny. Yes, it does, said Steve. I want to believe that Jesus is the Son of God, but not just out of the fear of burning in hell for all eternity. Where do I start, said Johnny. You are what's called a seeker. Do you read the Bible, said Steve. No, I don't. In fact, I can't remember ever reading a Bible, said Johnny, shaking his head. That would be a good start, said Steve, smiling. Yes, it would be a good start, but how can I trust or believe what's in the Bible, said Johnny. I'll give you something to read on the validity of the Bible. Let's meet again next week, said Steve. After many meetings with Steve and completing his journey as a seeker, Johnny began to feel a peace and calmness that he had never experienced before. Johnny is attending a cowboy action shooting match at a local range. The range is set up to look like an old western town with various Old West buildings. There is an old-time saloon, a barber shop, and the OK Corral, to name a few. Johnny is addressing a group of 30 cowboy action shooters. Everybody is dressed in cowboy clothing. Were it not be for the autos in the parking lot, a person might believe that they were swept back in time and in the Old West. Johnny takes his hat off. This concludes our safety meeting. I'd like to say a short prayer before we start the match. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful sport we participate in and the beautiful weather you have given us today. We thank you for this great country we live in and the men and women in our military who protect us. We ask you to give us a safe shoot. We ask you to protect this great country of ours and the men and women who guard our freedom. We ask this in your Son, Jesus' name, amen, said Johnny. The cowboy shooters respond with a hearty and loud amen. You all have a safe and fun shoot. Thanks for coming, said Johnny as he put his hat back on. The shooters walk over to various sections of the range and the match starts. Sonny, a distinguished-looking man in his mid-70s, dressed in black, walks up to the firing line and stands next to the timer operator. The timer operator looks at Sonny and says, "Is the shooter ready?" Sonny nods. "Yes, sir." The timer operator puts the timer close to Sonny's head. "Stand by," says the timer operator. A buzzer on the timer sounds. Sonny picks up a Winchester rifle and alternates 10 rounds between 2 steel targets. He lays the Winchester down and draws a Colt revolver from his holster. Sonny alternates 5 rounds between 2 steel targets again, and then reholsters the revolver. "Clean with a time of 19.7 seconds. You may proceed to the unloading table," said the timer operator. Sonny picks up the Winchester and walks over to the unloading table. Johnny is standing at the unloading table serving as the unloading officer. Sonny levers his Winchester. Johnny looks into the Winchester's receiver. "Your rifle's clear," said Johnny. Sonny lays the Winchester down on the unloading table, pulls out a Colt revolver from his holster. He empties the spent brass cases and spins the cylinder. Johnny watches the cylinder spin. "Your pistol is clear. You are good to go, Sonny." "Say, I hope you didn't mind me saying a prayer before the match," said Johnny. "Oh, why do you say that?" said Sonny, frowning as he holsters his revolver. "I saw you walking away from the prayer. Everyone else had their hats off and was listening to the prayer," said Johnny. "Well, the prayer was okay. We do have a lot to be thankful for, but I don't need that Son of God Jesus stuff." "There ain't no such person," said Sonny. "No God either?" said Johnny. Sonny responds in a loud and snotty tone. "Nope, and don't start preaching to me either. I don't like listening to Bible thumpers," said Sonny. "I ain't a Bible thumper, Sonny," said Johnny, shaking his head. Later that afternoon, Johnny arrives home and goes into the kitchen. He is carrying his rifle and a pistol case. He is greeted by Rosa. He sets the rifle and the case on the kitchen table. Rosa looks at the table. "Please don't clean your guns on the kitchen table again," said Rosa. Johnny opens the refrigerator. "I just want a beer. I'll clean them in the basement," said Johnny. "How did you shoot?" said Rosa. Johnny opens up a can of beer and takes a swig. "Not too bad. One lousy miss or I had a clean match. You know, I found something out about Sonny today. He doesn't believe in God or a hereafter," said Johnny. "Well, how'd that come up?" said Rosa. "I asked him how he liked the prayer I said before the match. He got a little hot about it," said Johnny. "Well, what are you going to do about it?" said Rosa. Johnny takes another swig of beer. "Oh, nothing. He's been a good friend. I've known him for years, and that's the first time he ever got snotty with me," said Johnny. Rosa points a finger at Johnny and shakes it. "Don't you take any guff from him," said Rosa. "Nah, it was no big deal. He's a good guy. By the way, Sonny just bought a condo in Florida," said Johnny. Rosa's eyes widened. "Where in Florida?" said Rosa. "St. Petersburg. He'll be close to our son Jamie," said Johnny. Rosa gave Johnny a big smile and said, "You don't say. I love St. Petersburg and I love their beaches. I'd really like to have a condo in Florida." "Are you serious? I'd sure like to downsize. This place is way too much work. It would be great to move into a condo here in Wisconsin, but not in Florida," said Johnny. "Well, why not Florida?" said Rosa, frowning. "I plan on skiing when I'm 80 years old. You can't ski in Florida. Besides, riding a motorcycle in Florida can get dangerous," said Johnny. "Well, what about your hip? You told me the doctor said you're going to need a new hip someday," said Rosa. "He's all wet. I'll make it to the end of the trail without any new parts," said Johnny, grinning. Rather suddenly, Johnny's hip started to deteriorate rapidly. After X-rays showed that his hip joint was bone on bone, he decided to get a hip replacement. Johnny could tolerate the pain and discomfort, but he was concerned that his bad hip would eventually ruin his good hip. He was surprised at how quickly his bad hip had gone bad. He made the decision to stop skiing. He told his skiing buddies that he was sure he could ski on a new hip, but he did not want to risk falling and injuring it. After finishing physical therapy, Johnny became discouraged with his recovery progress. Finally, Rosa talked Johnny into going to water aerobics classes with her. Johnny was amazed at how well his new hip and his old hip felt after doing the water aerobics. His surgeon told him that he would eventually need to have his other hip replaced. The water aerobics are incredible. You know, I'm going to fool that surgeon and definitely make it to the end of the trail without any more new joints, said Johnny. Rosa shook her finger at Johnny and said, "What have I been telling you all these years? Maybe you will now listen to me for a change." "Yes, Sarge. By the way, were you serious about moving to Florida? Let's talk about it," said Johnny. Rosa perked up and smiled. "Why, yes, I'd love to live in the St. Petersburg area. But why your sudden change of heart?" said Rosa. "Well, I don't ski anymore, and I certainly don't need Wisconsin cold weather anymore. I'm getting a little tired of taking care of this place. Besides, we'd be close to Jamie, and he can take care of you if something happens to me," said Johnny. "Don't talk that way. Nothing is going to happen to you," said Rosa with a frown. "I'm just thinking ahead. By the way, Sonny called me yesterday. He loves Florida. Why don't we go down to St. Pete's? We can visit Jamie and look around," said Johnny. The following December, Johnny and Rosa drove down to St. Petersburg to visit their son Jamie and explore the possibilities of moving to Florida. Johnny and Rosa felt comfortable in the St. Petersburg area and decided it was time to downsize. In October of 2014, they sold their home in Wisconsin and purchased a condominium in a 55-plus community near St. Petersburg. Their condo was within a half hour of Jamie's house and Sonny's home. Johnny was a Harley-Davidson enthusiast since he was 17 years old. When Rosa asked if he would be bringing his Harleys down to Florida, he told her that he was going to sell them and buy a new Harley after they were settled in Florida. Johnny would always scoff at the idea of living in a retirement community. He thought a 55-plus community was for old people on their last leg. Johnny and Rosa were pleasantly surprised. Yes, there were older people living there, but Johnny and Rosa did not feel out of place. The people in their community were active and enjoying life. One of Johnny's big concerns was the hot and humid weather in Florida. Johnny and Rosa made a habit of going to one of the pools early each morning to work out. The early morning weather was pleasant. When they went out later in the day and the weather was hot and humid, Johnny would say, "So what? Tomorrow morning will be beautiful again." Johnny and Rosa were pleasantly surprised at how easily they adjusted to Florida's warm weather. Johnny was pleased to find that there was a cowboy action shooting club at a nearby shooting range. The Gulf of Mexico was 15 minutes from their condo. Johnny and Rosa loved to watch the sunsets and explore their new surroundings. Johnny and Sonny were attending a cowboy action shooting match near Johnny's condo. The Pledge of Allegiance was recited and the match director read the safety rules. When he finished, he asked if anyone had any announcements. Johnny asked if he could say a short prayer. The match director smiled and said that would be great. After Johnny finished the prayer, the group of cowboys again responded with a hearty and loud amen. Johnny noticed that Sonny was standing off to the side smoking a cigar, and he had left his hat on during the prayer. After the match was finished, Johnny and Sonny were loading their firearms and gear into Sonny's truck. Johnny looked at Sonny and said, "Looks like you didn't approve of my prayer again." "It's a free country. You can say anything you want. I just don't believe in that religious mumbo-jumbo," said Sonny. "It's not mumbo-jumbo, Sonny. You still don't believe in a creator and a hereafter, do you?" said Johnny. "No, I don't," said Sonny in a forceful tone. "Well, let's not argue and spoil a good day. I'm getting hungry. How about stopping for something to eat?" said Johnny. "Sounds good. I'm getting hungry too. How about stopping at Fred's? I like their burgers, said Sonny. Johnny and Sonny stopped at a local bar called Fred's. Fred's advertised the world's best burgers. Both Johnny and Sonny agreed with Fred's advertising. They each ordered a beer and a burger. Johnny took his hat off, and Sonny noticed that Johnny's hair was cropped short and his ponytail was gone. You look much better with shorter hair. Younger, too, said Sonny. Well, that's what everyone tells me. Rosa likes it, too. Well, here's to your clean match, said Johnny, as he raised his glass to Sonny. Why, thank you, sir. By the way, the other day Rosa told my wife how much she likes Florida, as Sonny bumped Johnny's glass. She likes being close to Jamie and the seashore. Besides, Jamie will take care of her if something ever happens to me, said Johnny. Sonny smiled and said, Nothing will happen to you. You are Iron Man. I'm not so sure about that. I haven't been feeling right lately, said Johnny. There's a nasty bug going around. You might have a touch of it. I gotta tell you, Johnny, I'm really sorry for getting hot about that prayer thing. It's just that I don't believe in a hereafter, said Sonny in a serious tone. Let's just enjoy our beer, said Johnny. Sonny takes a swig of beer. How about going with me to the range tomorrow? I want to try out a new set of pistols, said Sonny. I'd like to go, but I've got a doctor's appointment tomorrow morning, said Johnny. Well, I hope it's nothing serious, said Sonny. I don't think so. Just lately I've had some difficulty swallowing, along with my vision being blurred at times. I just want to check it out, said Johnny. Sonny smiled and said, Well, there's nothing wrong with your vision today, with only one miss. Johnny is sitting in a doctor's office. He is wearing a navy blue double-breasted blazer with brass buttons, along with a pink tab collar shirt and a contrasting Jerry Garcia necktie. 2 days ago, Johnny received a phone call from the doctor, and he was told to bring his wife in with him. Johnny did not tell Rosa of the phone call and decided to go alone. The doctor walked in and noticed Johnny's flashy apparel. You are looking pretty good, sir. Unfortunately, my news for you is not good. All of the tests reveal that you have CJD, also known as Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, said the doctor in a quiet and serious tone. Johnny bit his lower lip and looked at the floor for a few seconds. He took a deep breath, then looked up at the doctor. I never heard of that one. What's the prognosis? And please don't beat around the bush, said Johnny quietly. The doctor put his hand on Johnny's shoulder and said, It's not good. I'm going to give it to you straight, Johnny. Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease is a very rare, irreversible brain disorder that is ultimately terminal. Johnny winced and said, How much time do I have left? It's hard to tell. A year, maybe less, said the doctor. What will I be able to do, said Johnny. Well, just about anything you want for a while, but eventually you'll become bedridden. I want you to call me every week, said the doctor. Well, thank you for giving it to me straight, said Johnny, as he and the doctor shook hands. Johnny drove to the local Harley-Davidson dealer and arranged to rent a motorcycle. He selected a Heritage Softail and told the dealer he would be by tomorrow to pick it up. Rosa was still sleeping when Johnny went for a short walk. When he returned from the walk, Rosa was awake. Johnny was wearing a pair of jeans, a long-sleeve Harley-Davidson shirt, and a pair of snakeskin boots. The shirt read, Live to Ride, Ride to Live on the front. It was the same exact saying that was tattooed on Johnny's left arm. Rosa looked at Johnny with a puzzled look and said, Why are you dressed that way? I thought we were going to the pool this morning. Johnny smiled and said, I'm going to take a break today. It's Sonny's birthday and I'm going to go to the Harley dealer to buy him a gift. Well, wait, I'll go with you, said Rosa. That's okay. I'm going to meet him for a beer and some lunch. We may do some shooting afterwards, said Johnny. Rosa shook her finger at Johnny and said, Well, don't drink too much. Don't worry, Sarge. I'll be a good boy. I'll be back this afternoon, said Johnny as he started to leave. Rosa stopped Johnny and said, Say, You never told me how your doctor visit went yesterday. Johnny gave Rosa a small, forced smile and said, "It went just fine." On the way over to the Harley dealer, Johnny was unhappy with himself for not telling Rosa the truth about the results from his doctor visit. He went over in his mind how he was going to tell Rosa that the game whistle was going to blow sooner than later and end the fourth quarter for him. Johnny arrived at the Harley dealer and purchased a one-day rental. The dealer's rental agent asked Johnny how much experience he had driving a motorcycle. He told him almost 60 years. Johnny was asked to demonstrate his motorcycle driving skills by driving around the dealer's parking lot through some widely placed orange cones. Johnny had not driven a motorcycle for 6 months, and he was a bit nervous. He mounted the Red Heritage Softail and thumbed the starter. The engine roared to life, and Johnny carefully navigated the course. His riding skills and many years of experience came back to him at once. The rental agent gave Johnny a big thumbs up and said he looked pretty good on the Heritage. Johnny took off and headed for the Gulf of Mexico. Johnny drove to Pasagril Beach and parked the Harley. He walked over to a park bench and sat down. Johnny pulled out an Ashton cigar and lit it. A tear briefly appears in his eye. Johnny says to himself, "Well, Lord, it looks like I'll be meeting you soon. I never asked for anything from you, and I'm not asking for anything now. You have been good to me. I just want to thank you for the good life you have given me." He walks down to the water's edge. Johnny watches the surf roll up in the Gulf of Mexico for a few minutes, then returns to the park bench. A police officer walks up to Johnny. "Excuse me, sir, but no tobacco products are allowed on this beach. Please put it out," said the officer. "No problem, officer. Gee, I hope you don't give me a ticket. I didn't know that smoking was not allowed here," said Johnny. "Oh, no ticket today. They just passed the no tobacco ordinance, and not too many people are aware of it yet." "Say, is that your Harley over there?" said the officer with a smile. "No, I'm just renting it for the day." "Golly, I hope they don't pass a law against Harleys," said Johnny, grinning. "Well, I sure hope not. I just bought a new Ultra Glide." "Are you a new rider?" said the officer. "Nope, I've been riding for almost 60 years. Back in Wisconsin, I used to have 3 Harleys in my garage at all times," said Johnny. "Wow, I had trouble convincing the wife to let me have just one." "Are you planning on buying another Harley here in Florida?" said the officer. "Well, not right now. I've got a slight health issue that I'm dealing with," said Johnny with a slight smile. "Well, I hope it's nothing serious." "You have a nice day, sir, and keep the shiny side up," said the officer. "You have a good day too, officer," said Johnny. They shake hands and the officer walks away. An elderly nun with a cane slowly walks past the Harley. She stops and studies the Harley for a minute, then walks up to the park bench. She taps on the bench with her cane. "Excuse me, young man, is that your motorcycle?" said the nun. "Well, for today it is. Boy, I can't remember when someone called me young man. I might be older than you are, ma'am," said Johnny with a smile. "I'm 95, sonny. Do you mind if I sit for a minute?" "Say, you wouldn't have a cigarette on you, would you?" said the nun. "The city passed an ordinance banning all tobacco products on this beach. I almost got a ticket for smoking a cigar here. Besides, don't you know that cigarette smoking is hazardous for your health?" said Johnny. The nun laughs. "At 95 I should worry? Do you have anything to drink? I'm getting rather thirsty," said the nun. "I've got a couple of cans of beer in my saddlebags. They may be a bit on the warm side," said Johnny. "A beer will be just fine, sonny, provided you have one with me," said the nun with a big grin. Johnny gets up and gets 2 cans of beer out of the saddlebags. He sits down and opens each can. He hands a can to the nun. "Here you go, ma'am. Keep 'em sort of hidden. I'm sure they don't allow alcohol on this beach either." "To whom shall we toast to?" said Johnny as he raises his can. "Let's toast to Jesus. I'm going to be meeting him real soon," said the nun as she touches Johnny's can. Johnny gets a startled look and then returns the nun's toast. "Excuse me, Sonny, did I say something to offend you?" said the nun. "No, you didn't. It's just that I never thought of toasting Jesus. Truth be told, I'm going to be meeting him real soon also," said Johnny, looking out at the bay. "Oh, I didn't know. How do you feel about that? I've lived way beyond my years, but you are much younger than me," said the nun. Johnny looks at the nun. "I'm 75, ma'am, and I'm really at peace with myself. The man upstairs has been very good to me. I have absolutely no regrets. I'm married to a wonderful lady for over 50 years, have 3 wonderful children, been successful in business, and I've had a pain-free life. You might say I've led a charmed life. A person couldn't ask for anything more." "How about you, ma'am?" said Johnny. The nun gets a big grin. "Well, I always wanted to ride on a Harley," said the nun. Johnny points to the Harley and says, "Well, hop on, sister. Let's go for a ride." "I'd like to. One more beer and I might just take you up on that." "No, really, I don't think I could swing these old bones over the seat. Maybe I could have 10 years ago, but thank you for your very kind offer." "Say, what's your name?" "Mine is Sister Maria," said the nun. "Mine's Johnny." "Sister Maria, just like the lady in The Sound of Music. What was her name? Baroness von Trapp?" said Johnny. The nun smiles. "Yes, just like the lady in The Sound of Music, except I never met a baron." "Just kidding." The nun looks at her watch. "Well, I have to go now." "It was so nice to meet you, Johnny," said the nun. "Me too, Sister Maria. Can I call Uber for you?" said Johnny. "No, thank you. My car is right over there," said the nun. "Well, at least let me walk you over to your car," said Johnny, as he offers the nun his arm. They walk over to a red 1959 Corvette with the top down. Johnny gets a startled look on his face, then smiles. "This is your Corvette?" said Johnny. "Yes, sirree, Bob. I only drive it when it's nice out and I can put the top down. I can't get in it with the top up." "It's an automatic. I wish it were a 4-speed," said the nun as she patted the front fender. "Well, how does the nun get a car like that? I thought you ladies of the cloth swore a vow of poverty," said Johnny. The nun smiles. "My younger brother willed it to me. I willed it to our convent with the condition that I can drive it once in a while. Mother Superior wasn't thrilled about that, but when I go, this buggy will pay for a new addition to our convent, and then some. You wouldn't believe what this thing is worth." "Well, good luck to you, Johnny. I know we will meet again someday," said the nun. The nun gives Johnny a hug. She gets in the Corvette and takes off. Johnny hears the tires squeal and smiles. Johnny arrived back at the Harley dealer to return the motorcycle. The dealer's rental agent asked him how he liked the Heritage Softail and if he was thinking of buying a Harley in the future. Johnny smiled and told the rental agent maybe sometime down the road. When Johnny arrived back home, he promptly told Rosa about his doctor visit. The illness weakened Johnny considerably and he could no longer walk. The illness had caused him to become bedridden. After becoming bedridden, Johnny was visited by Sonny several times a week. Their conversations were lighthearted and they did a lot of reminiscing. As the weeks passed, Johnny grew weaker and weaker physically, but he remained alert and lucid. It was Christmas Eve on a sunny day in Florida with temperatures in the 70s when Sonny stopped in to visit Johnny. "How are you feeling today, partner?" said Sonny as he sat down next to Johnny. "Not too bad. They had me doped up pretty good," said Johnny in a soft voice. "Is there anything I can do for you?" said Sonny. "Nah, there's nothing I need anymore. It won't be much longer now. By the way, are you going golfing tomorrow? I know that's a big tradition with you, golfing on Christmas Day," said Johnny. "I don't think so. I'm not in the mood this year," said Sonny. "Sonny, there is something you can do for me. Go golfing tomorrow for me. I saw the weather report and it's supposed to be in the mid-70s again. Another thing, try to at least start thinking about God and the hereafter. I'll be meeting him soon," said Johnny. "I'll go golfing tomorrow for you, Johnny. We have been friends for a long time, and we have always been straight with each other. I have to be honest with you. I can't believe that there is a God or a hereafter. There's about as much chances of a hereafter as it is snowing in Florida on Christmas Day. You believe what you want. I'm sorry, but I have to be honest with you. That's just me. Your God dealt you a bad break, said Sonny. Sonny, you've seen the movie Pride of the Yankees with Gary Cooper. Do you remember the last scene when Lou Gehrig is giving his farewell speech at Yankee Stadium? He knows his time is limited and he says, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth. Well, that's me. I'm the luckiest man on the face of the earth. I've had a good life, said Johnny as he tried to smile. Well, I'm glad you feel that way. I hope I can feel that way someday, said Sonny. Sonny, I wrote my own epitaph. Would you read it for me someday? I'd like to get the last word in. And one more thing. Here's a letter I wrote for you about God and the hereafter. Please read it sometime for me, said Johnny. Yes, I will, said Sonny, as he shook Johnny's hand and put the letter in his pocket. I'll see you tomorrow after golf. I've got a Christmas gift for you, said Sonny as he stood up. I forgot to get you a Christmas gift, but I'll surprise you with something, said Johnny. That evening, Johnny passed away peacefully with Rosa and Jamie at his side. Jamie called Sonny to let him know about his father's passing. After hearing the news of Johnny's passing, Sonny sat there for hours pondering his last conversation with Johnny. Then he read Johnny's letter. Sonny woke up at 5 a.m. on Christmas Day. He walked over to his patio doors and drew open the drapes. It was snowing and there was snow cover on the ground, a total of 3 inches. Tears welled up in Sonny's eyes. Oh, Johnny, said Sonny in a loud voice as he fell to his knees. That morning, Sonny drove his Harley to a nearby church. He entered the church and knelt in the first pew. He put his hands together in prayer and looked up at the crucifix. Dear God, said Sonny. It was a beautiful sunny afternoon in Florida. Rosa held a celebration of life for Johnny at Paso Grill Beach. She invited the 4 original neat guys from Wisconsin and everyone else Johnny had met in Florida. Sister Maria drove up in her Corvette. Everyone was chatting and telling their favorite stories about Johnny. Hey, everyone, I have something to say. Johnny wrote his own eulogy and he asked me to read it. He wanted to get the last word in, said Sonny, as he pulled out several sheets of paper. Well, that sounds like Johnny, said Andy, smiling. Tommy and Davy smiled and raised their beer cans in a toast. Sonny starts to speak. Here goes, folks. These are Johnny's own words. I have been to several of these affairs throughout the years, and sometimes someone gets up and gives a little speech about the person and their life. Sometimes the comments are very appropriate, and sometimes not. Sometimes the speech giver does not even know the person but pretends to. While the speech giver may have the best of intentions, I'm not so sure that what they say sometimes is what the person would want to have said. So I'm not taking any chances. First of all, if there was ever a person who was blessed with a good life, it was me. A loud, rumbling sound is heard up in the sky. It gets louder and louder. Sonny stops reading. The unmistakable rumble of a Harley is heard. Everybody looks up. Sister Maria smiles knowingly. The 3 original neat guys raise their beers up to the sky. And Rosa says, I love you, Johnny.